Hello, I'm Bill Monroe, and welcome to episode 120 of 2-Minute Talk Tips, the podcast that opens with a practical public speaking tip in the first 2 minutes before getting into a deeper discussion about public speaking. Today's tip comes to us from special guest Maya Angelou.
So the one tip that I can tell people to help them become a better speaker tomorrow is to really dig deep inside of yourself and speak your truth. Do not be afraid to tell your story because you are uniquely qualified to speak your story and your truth. And when you speak your truth, you can connect with the audience in a much deeper level. Now remember, your truth, your emotions, your trials and your tribulations are yours. They're not going to be everyone else's. But if you are open and if you are honest, you'll be able to reach someone in the audience with some piece of your message. Now, a lot of speakers are afraid to open up and really speak their truth. We let fear stop us because we feel like we may be too vulnerable. But you want to really connect with your audience. And when you're open and you push past that fear and you're vulnerable and you let the audience in, you connect with them on an emotional level. And a lot of times when you give speeches, people may not remember exactly the words you said or all the tips that you gave them, but they'll remember how you made them feel at that exact moment. When you open up and you allow yourself to be vulnerable and you allow your audience to connect with you on that level, they will remember you. They will remember that feeling. They will remember that emotion. And then when you do open up, you also look like the expert on the topic. When you give your personal truths and your emotions, you prove to the audience that, yes, I am the expert on this topic. I did this. I accomplished this. I was able to push forward and get over that obstacle. And this is my story. And this is me. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. So really dig deep inside of you and learn to speak your truth to the audience to help push you forward in your speaking career.
Stick around, and after the break, we'll hear more from Maya Angelou. Welcome back. In the conversation I had with Mel, we covered, of course, the big picture stuff, but also some of the nitty-gritty stuff about developing a talk and the early brainstorming process. There's a real nice mix of practical, individualistic, and conceptual material here this week. And like any good motivational speaker, Mel brings some great enthusiasm to our talk. Maya Angelou is an entrepreneur, life coach, motivational speaker, CEO of Skill and Will Fitness, and former lead consultant at Andre Consultant. Mel's passion in life is to help people realize their greatness and help people accomplish their goals. Mel knows that in order to change your life, you must first change yourself and your mindset. So now, let's meet Mel. So Mel, thanks so much for joining us on 2-Minute Talk Tips this week.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. I am so excited to be on the podcast.
And that's awesome. You've done quite a variety of things, and it's I'm pretty excited to explore them, and especially some of the newer chapters in your life now. But let's start off with some of the earliest ones. What's your earliest memory of speaking to an audience?
I remember speaking to audiences when I was young. So I'm not a practicing Christian now, but I did go to Catholic school when I was younger. And it was a K through 12 school. And at that school, we had the wonderful opportunity to just get up on stage and speak to the entire school. So I think the first time that I spoke had to be first grade. I think that was the first time that I was on stage. And I just had the opportunity to speak to the audience, which was about, I want to say 500 people minimum. Uh-huh. And it was a great opportunity. Now, I can't tell you exactly what I spoke about. I don't remember, but, but I remember being on stage, and I remember having the podium in front of me, and I just remember speaking and just loving every minute of just being on stage and being able to speak to my peers and speak to people and just having them really take in the message that what I was saying.
I think I did the Catholic school thing in the New York area as well, and I remember that first grade class play. I had one line, which was just "I'm Prince Charming," and I had to learn how to bow or whatever in that whole Disney retrospective. But those early experiences really stick with you, and I'm glad you really loved it from the beginning.
I did. I absolutely loved it from the very, very beginning. Yep. So I had the opportunity to really just speak at random events. If family was throwing any kind of event, they would ask me to speak. I was always told that I have a great speaking voice. So I was always encouraged to get up on stage and just speak to my peers, speak to my family, speak to strangers. I was always blessed to have the opportunity. So I guess I've been very lucky that I never really had the stage fright, because if I did, they pushed it out of me.
Right. Because the great thing about when you're in first grade is that, you're not really afraid of doing a ton of stuff yet. You don't really know what you're supposed to be afraid of.
Exactly.
So today, what are you doing in that sort of 5 minutes before you take a stage?
So 5 minutes before I get on stage, and I'm going to say 10 minutes. So 10 minutes before I get on stage, I am listening to myself. I am sitting, I'll usually have headphones on, and I'm listening to my previous speeches, or I'm listening to my minute speeches I give on Instagram, because throughout the week I record about 3 to 4 small speeches, and I just like to motivate people through those. So before I take the stage, I'm usually sitting down or I'm walking and pacing, and I'm just listening to my voice, and I'm listening to my own message, because I really want to provide people with the true me and the message that I want to deliver. So I make sure I block everything out, and I'm just listening to my voice and my message. So when I do get on stage, I'm able to deliver the truest form of me and the truest form of my message. And maybe a minute to 30 seconds before I actually go on stage, I like a little bit of quiet. So the headphones will still be in my ear, and I'll just do a quick little, maybe minute or 30-second meditation, just so I can get calm and focused and centered. And then I walk on stage and get ready to do what I love to do.
Interesting. What I think is really interesting about that is a lot of times we encourage people to go ahead and record themselves and listen back to themselves so they can hear what they did and figure out what they need to do to improve. But that's not why you're listening back to yourself. You're doing it all to get centered on that core message and remind yourself while you're there.
Exactly.
So, as you're going ahead and helping other folks who may not be as lucky to avoid the stage fright, how do you coach folks to deal with those speaker nerves?
First and foremost, I always tell people, be prepared. You can never be too prepared. So know who your audience is, know who you're speaking to, because you can be delivering the same message, but if you have a slightly different audience, you may have to deliver the message a little different. One example, so I do a couple things with schools, whether it's elementary school, middle schools, or even college. I just gave a speech at the University of Shady Grove. And it's very different giving a speech to a college student versus giving a speech to middle schoolers versus giving a speech to a group of entrepreneurs. You have to tailor your message to really fit that audience. And then when you do know who your audience is and you're preparing for that, make sure that you are speaking your truth. Because people know if you're speaking your truth. And when you do speak your truth, you're able to really connect with your audience. Now, being prepared is great. And a part of being prepared is practicing. I can't say that enough. Please practice your speeches before you go on stage and give your speeches. Now, I know people who are further along in their speaking career, they don't need to practice as much. They still practice, but they don't need to practice as much. But if you're in the beginning stages and you are nervous, practice your speech. And I mean, practice it everywhere. If you're in the shower, practice it. If you're with your friends, practice. If you just need to look at yourself in the mirror, go ahead and look yourself in the mirror and practice your speech. And then something else I tell people to do if they're nervous is make sure that you're using positive affirmations. I'm a very big advocate for positive affirmations and just speaking positive to yourself in general. So if you're nervous, it could be your first speech and you're nervous. Make sure that you're telling yourself that you are an amazing speaker and that you're going to reach somebody. As long as you reach one person in that audience, then you have done your job. You have helped to motivate someone in that audience. So make sure that you are speaking kindly to yourself. Make sure you are encouraging yourself. And if you have to tell yourself every day for a week, I am an amazing speaker, I'm going to deliver an amazing speech, I am going to reach somebody in that audience, then it helps to calm the nerves. And then something else, which we just spoke about, is really having a pre-talk or pre-speak ritual. Now, like I said, my pre-speech ritual is listening to myself and then doing a quick meditation. But find something that helps to bring you calmness and find something that helps to bring you back to center. So in those moments right before you take the stage, you are calm, you are centered, you are ready to go, and you have the confidence to know that you are able to do it.
That's awesome. And there is a lot of stuff in there to unpack. I think, the idea of practicing and preparation, that is so important. I think the only times I really find myself nervous before going up and talking to a group is when I know I haven't done as much practice or rehearsal as I ought to have done for that event.
A lot of people, when they're first starting off, they want to say, oh, I'm just going to wing it. But it really helps to calm the nerves if you know, if you know that you're prepared for something. Now, there may be an instant where you may have to wing it, but if you've been practicing for other speeches as well, you'll feel more comfortable with that one or two times where you may have to wing it because someone asked you to do something last minute.
Absolutely. And you'll have a wealth of content that you have experience delivering. You know how it lands and you can draw from and pull together. The idea of being able to wing it, you can only wing it after you've already done hours and hours and hours of prep work over the years.
Yes.
It's kind of like the idea of the overnight success that took 30 years.
Exactly.
The other thing I think that you mentioned that's really interesting is how you can deliver your same message to different audiences, whether that's going to be middle school or entrepreneur or college or whatever it is. And you still have to deliver the same message, but you have to deliver it differently. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Oh, I can definitely speak to that. You want to make sure that your audience is able to understand what you're saying. Now, the motivation is pretty much the same across the board, but the way that you can motivate people is slightly different. When you're speaking to a child, you're probably not going to use the same rhetoric that you're going to use if you are speaking to a group of entrepreneurs. A group of entrepreneurs, they're pretty much, they kind of know what they want to do and what they want to accomplish. And they need that shove, that push, or they need something to help them build their confidence. But when you're speaking to a younger group of people, they may not be as sure. And you need to encourage and you need to motivate them in a way that helps build their confidence from a young age, rather than just pushing them out there and expecting them to fly. You really have to nurture younger audiences. And with older audiences or more experienced audiences, you still want to nurture them to some extent, but you can really jump more into the nitty gritty with older audiences.
Yeah, even when it's the same core message, it's the packaging around that message that has to change.
Exactly.
So which of those audiences is tougher? The junior high kids, the entrepreneurs, the college kids?
I want to say the younger the audience, the harder it is.
Why is that?
I think this generation coming up, and probably other generations as well, they're a little bit more unsure of themselves, and they see everyone else moving. We are in the era of information coming to you right away with social media, with television. They are seeing at the top of their game and being successful. And they may not be as confident because they may not be at that stage. And then being a kid is hard. Sometimes kids can be open to a message, but sometimes kids can be cruel as well. So I think you just have to to really nurture the younger generation. And I want to say motivate them in a way where you're really building up their confidence from the ground up. I think that can be a lot harder to do.
Because you can't assume there's already a good solid foundation there.
Exactly. Because a lot of times there may not be a solid foundation. I work with a couple of nonprofits, and they work with younger kids, and they definitely don't have the foundation whatsoever, whether it's coming from home, whether it's coming from school. They're coming from an environment where they're not really encouraged to do their best. They're really just kind of falling through the cracks, and you really have to start from the ground up with them and really motivate them and really encourage them and let them know that they are amazing. Because a lot of times these kids, especially the ones in these programs, they don't know that they're amazing already. They don't know that they can accomplish things. They don't see their future as being bright. And my job when I go in there is to tell them that your future can be bright if you want it to and if you put the work in. And when you speak to older crowds, when you speak to entrepreneurs, when you speak to corporations and businesses, they already know that they can accomplish something because they already accomplished something in their life. But when you're speaking to kids, especially kids who may not be coming from an area where they have a strong foundation, they don't have that sense of accomplishment yet. And it's my job and our jobs, frankly, as speakers, to let them know that they can accomplish things when they want to, if they just believe in themselves and they put the work in.
Absolutely. And that's so important to help them lock into at that early age.
Yes.
Now, a lot of what you're doing, you've been talking about motivation already. You're speaking, your workshops, your life coaching. It's all focused on motivation and helping to motivate people to go out and do what they need to do the work to achieve the dreams that they want to achieve and to make all that happen. But how is what you do different from the thousands of other motivational speakers that are out there? It seems like it's a very broad and general term that can collect a lot of different things and a lot of different folks on it. So what is it that you uniquely bring to your audiences?
I think that's an excellent question because there are a lot of motivational speakers and there are just a lot of speakers in general. I think there are 3 ways. Well, there's more than 3 ways, but I'm going to touch on 3 ways I think that I'm different from other speakers. I think the first one is I really speak my truth. Now, every speaker has their own story and every speaker has their truth, but my truth is unique to me. My journey, my truth, and my story is unique to me. And I really tend to talk about when I hit rock bottom. Now, when I hit rock bottom, it should have been a point in my life where I was on the top of my game. But unfortunately, and for things completely out of my control, I went through this horrible year. And we like to call it the year of hell. Mm-hmm. And during that year of hell, I mean, everything went wrong. And it was like every 3 to 4 weeks, something went like catastrophically wrong. And this continued for an entire year. I'll give you a few examples. I fell down a manhole.
Oh.
Yeah, that was horrible. I was kind of out of work for a while, and that didn't help with my fitness company that I also have.
Sure.
A few weeks later, I was in a car accident. And when I say car accident, completely like out of my control, I was at a red light and someone reversed into me. It was a complete freak accident. A few weeks later, a family member passed away. A few weeks later after that, one of my best friends almost passed away. So it was like every few weeks in this entire year, something catastrophic happened.
Just when you're starting to get your feet back under you again.
Exactly. So I would build my confidence back up and then boom, something happened and it would bring me down. And during this time, during this year, and those are just a few things that happened, during this year of hell, I really started to lose my motivation. And one of my keynote speeches and one of my seminars and webinars focuses on how to stay focused when the motivation is gone. And that's actually one of the most requested speeches that I do. I think that I am uniquely qualified to speak on that because I should have been on top of my game. Like everything should have been going great for me at that time. But I found ways to really keep myself focused, even though I may not have been as motivated as I wanted to be. So I think that's one way that I am uniquely qualified. Something else that I do feel uniquely qualifies me, and I don't really like speaking about it that much, but is the diversity factor. So I am a Black woman who's part of the LGBTQ, and there's not a lot of people like me on the speaking circuit. And with that diversity, with the spaces that I occupy, I think I bring a unique perspective, a perspective that maybe we may not have heard before, just because of my life experiences. Sure. Now, when you think of the top motivational speakers, you think of a lot of men. You think of Tony Robbins, you think of Eric Thomas, and you think of Jack Canfield. Now, these are amazing speakers, but they're coming from a different perspective from me. And then when you think of some of the top female speakers, you may think of Mel Robbins. By the way, I love Mel Robbins, and we kind of share the same name. That's why I usually go to her first.
And you may sometimes accidentally get her email.
Exactly. And they are all amazing speakers, but you don't necessarily hear of speakers who are, again, Black women and LGBTQ. And I think I'm unique in that aspect because representation is important. Now, you can go out there and you can motivate people from all walks of life, but sometimes there may be those people in the audience who want to see people who represent them. And I think that I can help people who feel on the outskirts because I'm a little different than a lot of the people on the top of the field. And I think the third reason is my passion about speaking. I am absolutely passionate about speaking and helping people. I love speaking. It's not just something that I just do because it can help my career in other aspects. I absolutely love getting on stage and having the mic in front of me and having the lights on me. And I am so passionate about it. And I am also passionate about one of my speech. I'm passionate about all my speeches, but the one speech
that I give. If you're not passionate about it, you wouldn't bother doing it.
Exactly. And the one speech that, again, my most requested one is how to stay focused when the motivation is gone. I am so passionate about giving that speech because I lived it. I hit rock bottom when I should have been on the top of my game. And when I give those kind of speeches where I really speak from the heart, I really feel like my passion shines through. And when your passion shines through, it's easier for the audience to connect with you on a much deeper level. So I think those are the top three reasons why I'm a little bit different from the thousands or hundreds of thousands of motivational speakers out there.
Right. Absolutely. And, that being able to have that and being able to articulate that value proposition also then makes it a lot easier for an organizer to decide that you're going to be the person to bring in for the event because you're going to be able to meet a bunch of different needs for them to help them put on the best event possible for their attendees.
Yes.
So as you're going through and as you're building a speech like, your how to stay focused when the motivation is gone or building your other talks, how do you go ahead and craft a particular message? What's your process for building another talk?
So I start by talking. So I don't know if you can tell this already. I like talking a lot.
And that is absolutely fantastic. It makes my job so much easier.
Good. I'm happy it makes your job easier. But I start talking. So if I get a request for a topic that I may not have a speech already written, I just start talking to myself. And I talk everywhere. I spend a lot of time in my car driving around, and I will talk in the car. I will talk in the shower. I will walk around talking. I mean, sometimes people look at me crazy because I'll have my headphones on and I'll just start, I'm speaking the message that I want to deliver. In the office, I'll just be talking to myself, and I'm kind of just getting my thoughts out of what I want to say and kind of imagining myself there in front of the audience. Now, once I find the right message, once I really find my groove, I start writing it down. And sometimes it's pen and paper because I love actually grabbing a pen and paper and actually writing it down. So I'll write it in a notebook or I'll write it on note cards. And sometimes I'll type it in my Google Doc. And again, since I love talking, sometimes I'll start talking it into the speech to type platform. And I just have it on paper. And it's more structured now that it's on paper. And it's usually in bullet points. And then once I get it in bullet points, I know this is what I want to say and how I want to say it. I practice. And I practice with anyone who wants to hear it. And if no one wants to hear it, I will practice. I will go in front of the mirror. I will practice, or I'll record myself. And I just keep practicing and practicing. Now, I do tend to record myself speaking a lot because I'll play it back. And then one of the things I do play back right before I get on stage in that 5 to 10 minutes is me practicing the speech. And then I'll have my notes. And as I'm approaching the podium or the stage or wherever I'm going to speak, I tend to set my note cards down. So I did all that writing and it seems like it's for nothing, but it really is part of the process. And then I'll go in there and I'll deliver the speech. And most of the time I'll deliver the speech from memory. And I don't need the note cards anymore because I've practiced so much and I'm so in love with the message I'm about to deliver that I don't need those note cards anymore.
That is fantastic. I think one of the things you talk about writing it down, and some people think, well, if you're not reading it, is writing it down a waste? It's like, no, it's the actual process of writing it down and putting it down there that actually helps you build it in your memory. It engages the physical aspects of your body in reinforcing those connections in your brain around that material.
Yes. Yeah. And I am such an advocate of writing things down, even with my life coach. I wish a lot of people would just grab a pen and paper and actually write. So I think it does help memory-wise when you actually write it down in pen and paper rather than typing it out also. Yeah,
very much so. The other thing, a couple of things that they're there. One of the things I found is myself doing is for my other show, when I have thoughts that I kind of want to explore some ideas, but they're not ready to be a podcast episode yet. I do this more on the Strokecast show, is I'll jump on Facebook Live and just start talking to the camera and working out some thoughts there in a much less formal context. And that I find to be really, really helpful to figure out what I think about a topic.
I definitely agree with you there. I do the same thing, not so much on Facebook Live, but on Instagram Live. I'm way more active on Instagram than I am on Facebook. So same thing, different platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the most valuable things I think to come out of the Harry Potter series is the story of the pensieve. The idea that wizards can go ahead and when you can't think if you've got all this stuff cluttering up your brain. So you got to pull those thoughts out and put them down somewhere. And I think writing things down is a lot like using that pensieve and pulling those thoughts out.
I think that's an amazing analogy. I am a big Harry Potter fan, by the way.
Awesome. So, I mean, you've got these talks and you've got your favorites and that you're really passionate about, that you deliver often or from time to time. And how have your core talks evolved? Yeah, like we were talking about before we started. My accent is now coming back in full force. My girlfriend's just going to roll her eyes tonight. But how?
It's the best accent in the world, so you can tell that I said that.
Exactly. A side note, I went to college in Montana and met a friend of mine, met someone out there who was been born in Jersey, but had been raised in Montana, but her parents still had their full accent. And her name was Dawn. Dawn. And she said I was the only one who could pronounce her name correctly because everybody else kept calling her Dawn.
Okay. There you go. It came in handy.
Exactly. So, I mean, how have your talks evolved? How has a talk evolved over the years? How is your how to stay focused when your motivation is gone talk different now from when you were first delivering it?
So when I first started speaking, I really focused on motivating people to be their best. And I still speak about that. But life experiences has really molded the way that my talks are now. So again, when I spoke about the year of hell, I think that has been the the biggest change to my speeches. Because again, before I was motivating people, but I never really spoke about staying focused or staying motivated when things aren't going right. I mostly spoke on just, let's be motivated, let's be the best that we can. But when that year of hell happened, it really shifted something inside of me, because to get through that year without going crazy, I really had to dig deep inside of myself to keep myself going and to keep myself focused. So now, like I said before, my most popular speech is not what I originally started off speaking on. My most popular speech is staying focused when the motivation is gone. And I've really built that speech up. And again, it's the most requested speech that I do. And not only have I developed that speech because of my own life experiences, but with a lot of people that I speak to and a lot of people that I work with life coaching, their stories have also helped me to build that speech up. So to circle back around to answer your question, I think life experiences, my own life experiences, and then life experiences of people that I helped has really helped me to speak my truth and to really deliver a speech that can really reach people who need to be reached. And when I do use examples, I always get people's permission before I use their story, and I don't use people's names just to let people know I'm not going and grabbing people's stories and just throwing it in there.
Yeah, but that's one of those things that's important too, is that, as one of the things my high school English teacher always said was, good writing is never finished.
Yes.
You're going to continue to collect new stories and new insights and new observations into your topic just by being aware of what's going on around you and listening to what other people say and listening to what they share. That becomes really powerful things to incorporate, and you got to keep track of that stuff.
You do. And I'll tell a lot of speakers out there, don't be afraid to add or change some of your speeches, because as you grow and as you evolve, your speeches should be growing and evolving as well. You never want to be stuck in this spot where you're giving the same speech over and over again, and you're not putting in these lessons that you learned along the way, because you can always improve your speech. It doesn't matter if you've been in the game for 1 year or 20 years. The life experiences that you've been through and that you've learned and the people that you've met can be great tools and can really help push you to the next level. So don't be afraid to add these life lessons that you're learning along the way into your speeches.
Plus, if you keep evolving the talk, it becomes a lot easier to go back to the same audience again another year or two later.
Exactly.
So, what do you see as some of the biggest mistakes then that other speakers are making?
So I think one of the biggest mistakes that speakers are making, first and foremost, is they're not speaking their truth. And you really have to speak your truth. You have to open up to your audience. And then something else is presenters sometimes rely too much on their notes and on their presentations. Have you ever seen someone speaking and they're just gripping onto their notes and they're not really making eye contact, or they're looking at their presentation too much?
The more time you see the speaker's back as they turn around to face the big slide projected behind them, the bigger challenge they're having.
Exactly. So they're not connecting with their audience. And if you cannot connect with your audience while you're giving the speech, your message isn't going to resonate with them. You're not going to be able to motivate them in the way that you want to motivate them, because they're not connecting. They're listening to the words. They're watching you not know what you're saying, and they no longer see you as an expert. Now, another way that speakers make a mistake is they do not practice. Practice is so important. You have to practice and practice and practice your craft. And this is not just in speaking. this isn't anything that you do. The more you practice, the better you become. So be prepared. Let your notes go. Let the slide go and practice. So yes, you have this amazing slide behind you, but the focus is on you. And the secondary thing that people are focusing on are the slides. The slides aren't your crutch. The slides are there to give someone a visual of what you're saying. Another way that I think that speakers make a mistake is when they're first starting out, they focus on landing these big gigs, and they're always trying to go after these big gigs, and they're not getting the experience that they may get if they do a couple smaller gigs. If you build your resume by doing these small gigs, you look like an expert. If you have these 10 small gigs, when it comes time for someone who's going to give you a big gig or give you an opportunity to give you a big gig, they're going to see you more as an expert because you have all these speeches on your resumes. And then you can give people give you amazing references. They'll be like, oh yes, I'll use myself. Oh yeah, Mel was an amazing speaker. She spoke to my organization and it really motivated them. And when you have these smaller gigs lined up and you have these great references that you can give, these bigger gigs will start falling in place, and you'll be surprised how people talk. Maybe that small gig that you did, you left such a huge impact that they spoke to their friends who is part of a big organization, and they passed on your information to that person. So don't be afraid to do smaller gigs. Now, on the flip side, there are people who are doing all these small gigs, and when the big gig comes along, they are so afraid to do it that they will say no. Do not be afraid of stepping up in your game. Do not be afraid of taking that larger gig. Do not let fear stop you from advancing in your career. So I guess those are a couple mistakes I see people make.
Awesome. And the other great thing about those smaller gigs is that eventually, if those go well, that event organizer is going to move on to bigger and bigger gigs. And if you can establish a relationship with them earlier on in their career and in their path, you've got a long future ahead of you.
Yes, you do.
So if somebody wants to go ahead and get started and wants to sort of, obviously everybody's path is unique, but if they want to adopt the path that you've chosen and follow it, where should they start?
Start speaking. And I mean, honestly, just start speaking. Like we mentioned before, you do the Facebook Live and I do the Instagram Live. If you want to be a speaker, you need to start speaking. And it really doesn't matter where your audience is. So use these tools that are in front of you to just start getting your message out. We live in an amazing time that if you have an idea, you can literally grab your phone or go on the computer and just go out there and just start speaking live to people. And most people have friends, so their friends can listen to their message. But just start speaking. Contact local or smaller organizations. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Do not be afraid to network. Contact these organizations and be like, hey, I am a new motivational speaker or whatever speaker that you are, and put yourself out there. Let them know that you have this great topic that you can speak on and how it can help them. And again, it could be a small organization. It could be a really small organization. Maybe you're sitting in front of 5 people speaking, but that's okay because now you're speaking. Something else that you can do is join an organization like Toastmasters. Now, I personally never joined a Toastmaster. I went to a few meetings, but I do know a lot of people who have joined the Toastmaster organization. And it is an amazing organization for people who want to learn how to give speeches, because you give speeches to your peers and they critique and they can help you come up with a message that you can put out there that you can get paid for. Now, when you join these organizations, they're there to help critique you, to help make you better. So do not be afraid of being critiqued. A lot of times we have a fear of people telling us that we did something wrong. That is a fear that I do not have. If I am doing something wrong, I want you to tell me. If you think there's a way that I can improve my message, let me know. I love when people give me feedback, and whether it's feedback that I want to hear and maybe feedback that I don't want to hear, I know that feedback can help make me be the best speaker that I can be. And then another thing that you can do, again, start speaking, record yourself speaking and post it online. Now, my motivational speaking career got started by accident. I mean, completely by accident.
The best things in life come that way.
Exactly. And I was so surprised when I got this phone call. So I was putting these quick little motivational speaking things online. I started on Snapchat for my friends, and then I moved on to Instagram. And this was not a career. I didn't see myself being a motivational speaker, which is odd since I love to talk. But that's not where I saw my career taking me. And then one day, someone contacted me, and I thought they were contacting me in regards to my fitness company, because I also own a fitness company. And I got the message, and this person told me, hey, we're doing this fitness event, and we need someone to motivate. I was like, okay, sure, I'll do that. And they're like, okay, can you give a speech at this point? And I was like, oh, you don't want me to speak on you don't want me to do like a demo or something. You want me to speak. And I said, okay, I can do that because I like to speak. And I got to the event and I got on stage and I gave my speech, and I fell in love with the idea of becoming a motivational speaker. But that only happened because I put myself out there with these short little video clips. And I think Instagram, it can't be more than a minute. So I was putting out these minute-long videos, and people were really connecting with it, and they were hearing my message. And through these 1-minute speeches here and there, I was able to start landing gigs. So put yourself out there, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, local organizations, just start speaking some way and just start trying to reach an audience and start trying to build a connection with your audience.
Well, that is fantastic. And from a technical standpoint, too, one of the other great things about Instagram is that it's one of the few platforms that you can actually auto-post from Instagram straight into both Facebook and Twitter. So you can really get into the other platforms and help spread your message and your story beyond.
Yes. I love Instagram. I use Instagram a lot for my motivational speaking business. It really helps. And connecting it with the other social medias makes things so much easier.
That is fantastic. So Mel, if folks want to know more about you and what you're up to, where should they go?
Excellent. So I mentioned Instagram a lot in this. So the best place to reach me is on Instagram. And my Instagram handle is Mel, MEL _Andre, ANDRE 911. And I post several videos weekly. So we have Motivational Monday, Thankful Thursdays, the midweek pickup, and we're going to start doing some videos on Tuesdays and Fridays. You can also reach me at my website, which is melmandre.com. Or if you're interested in booking me for either life coach or motivational speaking, it's book at melmandre.com.
Awesome. And we will also have all of those links over at 2minutetalktips.com/Mel. So, Mel, thank you so much for joining us this week. This has been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about the podcast, and I'm really excited that you invited me to come in and speak.
Are you inspired after listening to that? I hope so. Back on May 11th, 2019, Mel, along with Barbara Pando Bink and Melanie Williams, spoke at the Keys to Success and Happiness conference. At that conference, they not only discussed how to become successful, but also how to find happiness during your journey and stay happy during the ups and downs that come with chasing your dreams and accomplishing your goals. So why am I telling you about a conference that happened more than a month and a half ago? Well, because you can now watch the entire conference for free at keystosuccessandhappiness.com. Or just head on over to 2minutetalktips.com/Mel for that and all the links from today's show. I'm also trying something new this week. I really liked Mel's discussion about the mistakes new speakers make. If you'd like to hear just that 4-minute segment, you can find it at 2minutetalktips.com/Mel Talks Mistakes. Or again, you can just find it over at 2minutetalktips.com/Mel. You can find Mel on Instagram where she is Mel_Andre911. Just search there or follow the links on 2minutetalktips.com/Mel. Share this episode with 2 colleagues this week by using the link 2minutetalktips.com/Mel. Subscribe to 2-Minute Talk Tips in your favorite podcast app for free so you never miss an episode. And of course, as always, don't get best, get better. Thanks a lot. I'm Bill Monroe, and I'll talk to you next week.
Two-Minute Talk Tips is a proud production of the Currently Speaking Podcast Network.